Welcome to Brent's Prime Food Adventures. I'm Brent. I have a special guest today. His name is Brent Thomas.
Hello, hello.
We are in Lakewood, Colorado, which is a suburb of Denver. You can see Denver as I'm driving in from my Boulder area home. And we are making sourdough bread. Brent runs an organization or a company called the Sourdough Bakery.
Sourdough Bakery.
Sourdough Bakery.
Yep.
So today we are going to talk about the science and the benefits of fermentation. We're going to apply that specifically to sourdough bread. We're back to the Sourdough Bakery. And then we're going to make sourdough bread. So
let's do it.
sourdough bread is not only healthy, but it's a little bit of a process. And so I'm going to lay out what we're going to talk about. And then when we bake the sourdough bread, I'm also going to lay out how sourdough bread is made. So with respect to what we're going to cover today, we are going to talk about the basics of fermentation. In general, what is fermentation? And then what are some of the fermented foods that are out there, because sourdough is one of them. And then we're going to discuss just the bread industry in general and what happened, because all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, we've been leading to this over 100 years, bread is not necessarily healthy for you. In fact, one of the bread companies, Wonder Bread, which we all had as children, if you're a boomer, went out of business because that was an example of just unhealthy bread. And now when you go to the market, much of the bread is unhealthy and not good for us. Again, bringing us back to sourdough. We will then talk about just specifically sourdough bread, and not just sourdough bread in general, but bread specifically from the Sourdough Bakery. The Sourdough Bakery, by the way, I want to get the word right. It's a cottage bakery?
Yes, cottage bakery, which allows me to sell in the state of Colorado and the state of Colorado only. And it's just out of your home, and with having your home address and knowing it's a home kitchen, like with peanuts and other things like that, possible allergies. And that is what a cottage bakery basically is.
And we'll cover that more. And later I'm going to give you the website. If you're in the Denver area, you do an email, we'll talk about all that. But just so you know that right now, this is a startup organization, and Brett.
Very new, very new.
And by the way, we have Brett and Brent today, so please don't be confused.
Yeah, two B's.
The two B's, very similar. So this is a cottage bakery is what we have, the Sourdough Bakery. We're going to then talk about the business model, the distribution process of it. And one of the things I just want to say, know your source. If you've been watching Brent's Prime Food Adventures, you know that I've been saying that repeatedly, whether it's with respect to olive oil, whether it's respect to bison, whether it's respect to rabbit, whether it's respect to sourdough bread. Over and over, I'm saying that the mass-produced food sources that are in the United States aren't necessarily the healthiest. And if you really want to eat healthy, one of the things you should do is know your source.
Ingredients matter.
Ingredients matter. And how it's manufactured matters as well. And then we will make some bread together. Okay, Brett, we are going to discuss the science or the basics of fermentation at this point. So remember, we had talked about how we're going to talk about the science and the benefits of fermentation. So right now, I would like you to share with me, what is fermentation?
Fermentation is basically a process of letting something, by aging, it adds all kinds of different benefits and things to it. And it could be whether it's sourdough, whether it's starting with something that is brine or isn't, but it can lead to changing something and the whole response it has to you. So for sourdough, for instance, that like will have a lower glycemic response for me being a diabetic. And so comparative to something that is not cultured or that has fermented, let's say. And so fermenting does a lot of different processes, and most of them are beneficial. And I would say all of them really are beneficial.
So you're talking about cultures?
Yes. And
we need yeast?
Yeast is that as well. And so that's what the sourdough starter is it is substituting for yeast. It is flour and water that is just cultured by air, that naturally does it from air and ferments from that, and that is what your yeast is. And that's what we are using for making bread, and that is what sourdough starter is just basically yeast, but it is flour and water with air over time, and then that process itself is what is the fermentation process. And then you're using that over and over to make bread, or using that fermented bacteria to make all of these breads and leaven products.
Let's talk real quick. I'm going a little out of sequence, but it makes sense now. Let's talk about some products, because I want to talk about cultures and bacteria and all that as well. Back to what is fermentation. This will make it easier, I think, for our viewers to follow. What are some well-known fermented items?
Well, kimchi. There's yogurt. Like cheese is even
aged cheeses, blue cheese for sure.
Anything aged has some type of fermentation, usually with it. And so there's a lot of things that are like fermented.
Sourdough bread.
Sourdough is obviously one of the bigger ones that we're working with.
We're going to cover some other ones real quick. Sauerkraut. If I said kimchi, we'll say it again. Miso, apple cider vinegar. Brent has shared with me that all vinegar has been fermented.
Yeah, it's a fermentation in a sense. So,
Kefir is another one that's popular. There's more and more. But those are some examples of some of the popular fermented items. And all of those have some kind of yeast, some kind of bacteria, some kind of thyme.
It's healthy bacteria, and basically those are the bacteria that are really good for your gut and your biome, and that are, you always want more of than less. And that just helps you deal with things in life and healthier. Whatever it is that's happening, if you have a healthy biome and gut, it's better. And so fermentation is a big helper for that. And a goalie, they're going to block a lot of things trying to come in that are not good. So
sometimes we say everything that's old is new again. Fermentation is an example. Egyptians were making sourdough bread back,
it goes a long time.
2000 BC.
Yep, long time. It's been found and been going on for a long time. And so this is naturally, humans have been doing this. And so we're just going back to things that we now know were always good.
Exactly. I want to say that again. This is not a new process. This is a process that's been going around for, 5,000 years, longer. Who knows how long, but for a long time. So, Brett, one of the things is we're talking about fermentation. I'm going to lead on these, and we're going to talk about benefits of fermentation just in general, what they mean to you and to me. Digestive gut health.
Yes.
Yes.
It's good.
Probiotics are an example. It's as we talk about why fermentation is so popular now, it's just really so healthy nutritionally healthy for us. From a nutritional enhancement, I understand that it increases some of the vitamins and that it gives you better nutrient absorption.
Yep, nutrient uptake. Just allows your body to do naturally what it should be doing. And so it's like a catalyst in that regard. It just helps your body do a better job at doing what it should be doing. And that's digestion and everything else. That's really what a lot of fermentation is hugely helpful on. But in a lot of ways, there's things that change. So like freezing sourdough, for instance, can possibly help with the glycemic index response. Even celiac, it will help with the responses of that by freezing that. So certain things like temperature even can make differences on that stuff. But in general, it is beneficial in so many ways for your gut and microbiome that it's hard to even talk about in one session.
It is. More systematic health benefits that we haven't covered yet. I understand it's anti-inflammatory.
Yeah.
I also understand it lowers blood pressure.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. It does. There's many benefits from it, and we're still catching up from old times of what it can possibly do for us. And so, as a diabetic, I can attest to why I have sourdough and eat sourdough daily.
Be more specific, because let's just talk about that specifically.
It's glycemic response, and so I would have a sugar response, for instance, from let's say English muffins is what I used to normally have for breakfast. And what that would take for my amount of insulin that I would take to recover from that carbohydrate response and sugar that it turns into response, compared to a fermented bread with a lower glycemic index, which basically I won't have to take as much insulin. So I'm using less insulin now, way less than I used to, by not having these multiple ingredient, let's say, baked products, and also increasing my fermented intake of different things. And that's not just bread. So there are other things as well, whether it be like a kimchi or anything. So, sauerkraut. Isn't that fermented?
Yeah,
I mean, so,
absolutely.
again, those things are all helpful and beneficial. And so, but yet, the response alone from being a diabetic, from the fermentation and having that, it's just a bigger, less of a sugar response. And so for me, that's huge. So,
And it's not just if you're a diabetic. Sourdough bread is healthy for everybody.
yeah.
Okay, but specific to diabetics, it is something that I've been told over and over and over again that it's something that is health conscious diabetics, and they have to be. That's like a.
It's just easier to deal with compared to other products out there that are not fermented or just have a high glycemic response, which is most things. Like when we talk about Wonder Bread or anything like that, bleached flour, all of these things will have a higher response for me and other people, whether you have diabetes or not. It will make your sugar or a response
Absolutely.
go up,
Yeah.
diabetes or not. And so that's just what you're lowering those responses, and that's a good thing.
Fermentation also helps. The last one
Yeah.
is that food preservation and safety. And by that, what I want to say is that it will extend the shelf life. Do you feel like sourdough bread lasts longer than regular bread?
Yes, I do. And there's a couple ways of why. You can freeze it, and it freezes really well, and it keeps really well. And in fact, I didn't know how long, and because I had one just stuck in there, and I label all of my bread. And I didn't realize, I was like, well, I wonder if I can't give this out, because I only had one left, and a friend wanted some bread, and I was like, well, I don't even know how this tastes. So I unfroze it and checked it. And it was in there for about 7 months. And it tasted still really good.
That's
And-
That's food preservation.
And that's not bad for being in a freezer for 7 months. It's, and I know my bread because I bake it every day. And having something fresh to 7 months, I was pretty surprised, to say the least. And so that's just one thing without adding preservatives. It does it naturally on its own a little bit.
And then the other one is just pathogens. There's less pathogens. Inhibits the fermentation process. Inhibits pathogens.
Keeps the bad guys out.
Yeah, listeria would be one. Salmonella would be one. That if you're eating a fermented product, your risk of obtaining pathogens like those becomes smaller.
Yep. Having better colonization of good guys is going to be better when it comes time to battle the bad guys when they show up.
Okay.
Basically that kind of thing.
So what we're going to talk about now is really just about bread. We talked about the fermentation process in general, the science behind and the benefits behind fermentation. And we're going to talk about bread, which is not a fermented product, the bread that you're going to buy in a big box store. So these are items that, this is kind of the history of bread. And that is that traditionally bread was organic. I mean, that's there was no pesticides, there was no chemicals, there were no GMOs. And traditionally, bread was fermented as well. Mm-hmm. And then what happened in the late 19th century, so Industrial Revolution comes along, and they start to create the mass-produced industrialized white flour that everybody uses now. And so when that happens, it creates a longer shelf life, and it also reduces the cost, but it also sucks a lot of the nutrients and vitamins out of the flour. At that point, in the early to the mid 20th century, they decided, oh my gosh, we took all the vitamins out of the flour, and they try to add some back in. They don't try, they do add some back in, but it's not the same as the organic bread that was produced 100 years ago. That was all natural.
Yeah, all natural, getting it naturally. So
Then what happens in the 60s and the 70s is they changed the grain. And they did that because mad science is out there, and they're higher yields, it's more productive.
yeah, profitability over, nutrients or, other importance. Importance was not in the right areas always.
And this is the grain that they're using to make the bleached flour, the white flour. And so in addition to all the nutrients and the vitamins, although they did put some back in, getting sucked out of it, when they changed the grain, now there's more gluten in it. And so for those reasons,
Yeah.
because of the industrialization and the processing, bread has gotten to the point where the big box store bread has now become, it makes people sick. They're
Unhealthy.
It's so much gluten intolerance out there.
Yeah.
I'm not just talking about celiac. We say regularly, I meet with people that say, oh, people have so many more allergies, people have so many more intolerances. It's not the people that are changing, it's the food that is changing.
The ingredients that are going into it.
Yeah.
So, ingredient savvy is important, and how they're treated, the ingredients. And so that's part of it, is all of this. These grains were made towards profitability more so than actually keeping nutrients, keeping ancient grains or things that were really good. That wasn't as profitable. And so, as business goes, what's good for business is not necessarily good for the body. And, that's how the bread industry changed over time.
Blood sugar issues, digestive issues, two more things going on with bread that you just buy from the big box store. Know your source, guys.
Yeah, even my salt. Everything that we get, I don't want to say just in America, but in anywhere, you have to be very, very attentive to what it is, where it's coming from, what's in it, what was done to it.
And we've come full circle. We're aware now in the 21st century that of the whole conversation that we just had. So here we go. We're back at the Sourdough Bakery, and we're back to organic fermented bread, which is so much better for us. So Brent, what I'd like to discuss now is I would like to talk about just organic Sourdough Bakery sourdough bread. So we're telling you why Brent has a business. We're not going to eat that bread, box store bread anymore. We're going to try to avoid it as much as possible. And by the way, Brent, if you've been to Europe,
Yes.
the bread is so much better there.
Yep. And so they're using just better ingredients, grains that haven't been sprayed or messed with or altered in any way, and they just affect you differently. And so people, when they said they've been traveling to Italy or other places, France, and they eat croissants and they eat this, it's not only that they not gain weight, it just doesn't affect them as much.
Yeah.
They don't feel as full, and so it has different responses. And so organic has the same type of stuff. It has better responses.
Yes.
And so that's why for my bakery I try to use that stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, Central Milling in Utah, they're definitely my go-to for all, basically all my flour. They're all organic, and in fact, Kirkland, so Costco, anybody of you guys who do Costco, Kirkland, their all-purpose organic flour that they have at Costco is from Central Milling in Utah. And so I do get their all-purpose flour because it is a good price, but it comes from the same place that I get all of my good organic bread flour and wheat flour and everything else from, Central Milling in Utah. And so I always would recommend them, and any other good organic over something that is not.
And if you're not a Costco member or you're nowhere near a Costco, more links below.
Yeah.
This is one of the episodes you really want to read the description. Just the tools to make the sourdough bread and the products, the ingredients to make the sourdough bread. This is one. Go to that link below. Okay, so we have organic flour. The ingredients, traditional ingredients in any sourdough bread are the flour, the water, and the salt. And the starter in this particular case,
Which is your culture, and so that's what we went and showed you in the starter. And it's a time process of basically it's like your yeast. It is what your rising Levant Asian is the starter.
makes sense.
And so that is what is your active ingredient, if you will.
And he uses 3 kinds of flour. Again, I'll have, we're not going to give you the measurements, but I will have references in those links to the 3 kinds of flours. And one of his, he says it's a secret ingredient, and I'm going to say it because we don't know the measurements. I don't even know the measurements. I took a solemn vow of silence, but even before that, he didn't even share it with me. And that is that barley is in his as well.
Yeah, it helps with taste. And so, having all organic ingredients obviously is important. But if you want a sourdough bread, when you're making the bread, instead of just bread flour, you can add other flours to that, whether it be whole wheat along with the bread flour, a little bit of barley, rye, right? Not making a full rye bread, it just adds flavor. So just a little thing for all the real people who want to get into serious sourdough making and have maybe a taste palette that is beyond other people.
So we have wholesome, clean, time-honored techniques. Prior to the last 150 years, all bread was made with a leavening agent.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned, we talked briefly when we were off camera about yeast.
Yeah,
Is a new
it's a newer thing. The instant yeast is kind of a newer, easier shelf life thing for people to just use, and that's what most people use in baking. And you can sub that with your starter.
Yeah.
So everything that I make in my bakery is subbed. So a morning buns, instead of using instant yeast, it's sour starter.
There's no sour in there was no sour taste at all in the bread. It did bring me back to Europe, by the way. Now that I think about it, I've been to Europe a couple of times. Portugal is where I was, I said it over and over. I was just staying in little hostels and bed and breakfasts at the bread, and they would have food out for us, and the bread was always so good.
Probably just a homemade thing, and some of them might have been their own starter or something that they've had going, and that's part of it. But yeah.
And so before this yeast, the starters, it was the pioneers, gold miners, the settlers. It was a highly valued. The people would keep it near their skin. They were out because you needed your sourdough starter. I'm going to have a little fun here. It's alive.
Yeah.
It's alive, I say. Alive.
It's alive! It is.
Okay. So we are going to talk. We're back now to the Sourdough Bakery. We're going to talk about genuine ingredients. We're going to the slow fermentation process. I want to say big box store sourdough bread. Don't just walk into the big box store and say, I'm going to get sourdough bread. Know your maker, know your source, read the ingredients, because in plenty of them, there's seed oils, there's preservatives, there's chemicals.
It's all for shelf life.
What's the word we're looking for again?
Cultured.
Cultured.
Yeah,
okay.
it's basically the same thing as saying starter. It's like yeast, a bacteria. It's a culture, and it's alive, and that's kind of what it is. And so you have to look for that ingredient, and it should be not many other ingredients. That's the other thing. When you do look and it says sourdough and you don't see sour culture, you'll see other things, and it usually is stuff you can't pronounce, unfortunately. And that same thing in Whole Foods, and it'll say sour brioche or sour something else, and it says enriched. Well, enriched might mean monophenol monoxotrate or whatever the hell that is. I can't even say it, but it shouldn't be eaten.
I'm not sure we've said enough. The genuine ingredients, the fermentation process, it's naturally low glycemic, and is gut friendly. I just want to run through some more of these benefits, because it's the science and the benefits in this episode of fermentation. This is specific to sourdough bread. Some of these we've covered, but I'm just going to go run through them. Better nutrient absorption, and more nutrient rich. Improved digestion, the people that can't eat bread. Probiotics created during the fermentation process are healthy. So we got beneficial gut bacteria. We're higher in fiber and in antioxidants. So it does contain gluten. We're going to talk about this a little bit. So over and over and over, and then Brent and I discussed this. We agree if you're celiac,
it is not the thing to do. It's what we're saying is that there's less of a response with gluten.
If you're celiac,
and so that's really what it comes down to. It's just that the response is going to be different from what normal bread and other things would be. Not saying it won't be any response, and so that's key. It's not a cure, it's not anything. This is just going to help. It helps me for my glycemic response, meaning my sugar, my blood sugar, and as being a diabetic, it has less of a response with sourdough than it does from, let's say, an English muffin from the store or something else.
There are other people in the categories. They like to say they're gluten intolerant. Well, hello, we just talked about why that might be, or gluten sensitive. I know I've cut back on a lot of my wheat just because of what we just, for the reasons that we've discussed. I'm not intolerant, I'm not sensitive, I'm just gluten aware, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Or if you have IBS, the irritable bowel syndrome, these are all items which I will say it's debatable, but there are plenty of people that say they're suffering from one of these conditions and they're able to tolerate the sourdough bread, natural, organic, genuine, way better.
Yeah, the versions that we're talking about, not having the extras or the things that are not without the culture. And so that has a less of a response. Now, another thing, if you freeze sourdough bread, not only will it last a long time, and you can revive it and it does pretty good in that regard, it apparently, and this is up for debate, but freezing it breaks down and breaks down the gluten even more. And so there's more and less of a response. Now I've heard the same thing actually with rice, which is odd, but that's a whole nother thing. Same thing with sourdough. It has less of a response. So freezing it, if you are in this realm of having a response or you're sensitive in any way, try freezing whatever bread you have and that you're trying, sourdough or not. And that should help as well. It should be another positive of helping and breaking down gluten. So.
And I don't know if I was clear enough, but the sourdough process is a slow process. As you can imagine, we in this episode we filmed all 6 steps, but this is typically a 2 or 3 day process. Even more if you're going to talk about your starter and feeding your starter over and over and over.
The starter is its own thing, but like just for me to get like an order, I would have to know about a day and a half in advance, at least a day, to get it, because I have everything ready to go.
Yeah.
If you don't have everything ready to go, then you need a little bit longer of time, but at least a day, because you have to mix it, you have to let it sit, you have to let it sit in the fridge. That's about a day right there.
And it's not just about the taste. That long fermentation process is another thing that breaks down the gluten, which again, it makes it more tolerant for the people who have these gluten sensitivities.
Right.
And then when you're buying big box store sourdough bread, I'm going to say it again, did they do a long fermentation process?
Well, right.
Right? And so there's so many
You can think about that and wonder about that, it's like it's easier to not have to have stuff sit and have all that space taken up and blah, blah, blah. So that's why that kind of stuff is not done as much, or it's not easy to do. And so, that's, when you do find it, you'll know it, and that's what you want, and you want to use it.
Now we're going to go into the sourdough bakery in general. But I will say that I want to say that bread from the bread from manufacturers, if you want to call yourself a manufacturer, bakers, like the Sourdough Bakery.
Sure.
I'm gonna go. It's not a trend. We're just going back to what people used to do 200 years ago.
Going back to basics.
Going back to basics. Now we are going to talk about Brent's specific company, the Sourdough Bakery, and here in Lakewood, Colorado. Brent, how did you start?
It was by necessity, really. So I started just because of ingredients being bad. My blood sugar was not that great, and so I discovered by looking at ingredients that that was possibly what was happening. Is I'm using stuff that I should not be eating, and it's giving me a bad response. So I just started learning how to make my own bread, and it took a lot of trial and error with the starter. How long it took to get going? It takes about 2 weeks to make your own starter, actually. And that's not easy to do, and that we don't have a video for that, to actually make your own. You have to kind of have somebody's starter to use, or you can possibly get something like that's a dried out starter that you bring back to life. This is another possibility of something down the road I might even sell, who the hell knows. But this is something that you can, it's basically starter, and it's dried out on parchment paper in the sun. And then once it's flakeable, you can take it, you can revive it. It's a one way of keeping starter for long periods of time, over a year, even years. More back to the company though. I just needed I ate a lot of bread. And as a diabetic, that's not really the best thing. So having my own and coming up with my own bread, I literally cut my insulin or my medication in half by doing that alone. So that was by necessity. I did that. Then, by having a decent bread and other people trying it and making enough of it, people started asking about it. And so then it became kind of more and more asked about. The name of it kind of came up randomly from one morning when my golden retriever just waits for me to finish my breakfast egg and cheese sandwich with sourdough. And she was just always sitting there waiting for the last little bite. And it just came out. She was a sourdough. And that's kind of how the name came out. And so we took a picture of her and holding a loaf as the logo, and we've been running with that ever since. And so as a cottage style bakery, it's small. It's starting out small, and we're going to see where it goes. And so right now, it's just in the beginning phases, and so we're just getting started with all kinds of different things. And so being able to order and all of that process. And so maybe bake days, things of that nature, pick up, all of that. We're just getting going on all of that.
Brett, if I'm in Denver, and I am in the Denver area, and I'm going to want to order, and so what Brett is saying is that he has put in all the time and investment to make a delicious sourdough bread. Delicious. Oh my God, so good. So you can benefit from that by going to his website. Tell us the website.
Yeah, it's sourdoughbakery.net. So it's not .com, it's .net. And through that, I should be able to have email correspondence. And we can go back and forth and try and figure out orders or figure out something, because we're just getting started of how to do that.
The email works. That's how I reached out to him.
And so email is the best way right now. And we should be able to do like a day lag time, and I can get a date for pickup, and we can go from there. So that's one way of doing it.
Okay, so do you sell anything other than sourdough bread?
I will be. And so, it's just the thing of getting your ingredients and everything on the let's say, the menu. But yes, there will be sourdough morning buns, sourdough croissants. And so that's laminated dough and a whole nother process, and God knows how the video alone that would take. But yeah, we will have other options.
Right now, it's just the bread.
Just the bread, yeah, loaves of bread right now. Yeah.
Loaves of bread that look like this.
Yep. And it might be a slightly different signature on there or a cut, because they're never the same. But then you know that it's not mass produced, so that's good too.
Future growth steps, potential growth steps. What are you thinking? Let's just say this starts to take off. What does that mean?
Well, that means I need a new oven. But yeah, it basically has to be ready to have a lot more orders, and to be able to do that, you have to be able to expand. And so, if that's gonna happen and there's coming in enough orders, that would be the next step, is having to be able to be ready to bake a lot of bread. And so, if I was up for that, that would be great. But maybe delivery after that, something down the road like that. It depends on where it goes. Right now, it's so early; it's hard to say.
We talked about farmers markets, but I'm not gonna. You're not ready to go there. I'm ready to go there because I go to farmers markets all the time.
I mean, it's close, but it'll be slowly but surely leading up to that. Just because of the cost of getting in, and like it's got to be ready to do that, which I think I can hold my own. It's just a matter of paying for it to go in there. And so you got to be ready for all that. And with my little oven, it's hard to keep up with probably somebody that has a trailer with a big one or something like that. So,
Yeah. How many loaves can you get in your oven at a time?
Two,
right?
2.
And we all saw how manual the process is. Anything else about the Sourdough Bakery? I love the cottage bakery. I love that Colorado has those rules. I'm assuming every state does?
Yeah, they're probably different depending on each state and what you have to do. Some might even require licensing or other things. Colorado does not. It requires you to show that where it's being baked, the address, also that it's in a home kitchen, possible allergens, stuff like that, peanuts, things like that, which are around here. So you have to have that on your label.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is, and your ingredients by weight.
Yeah.
And so as long as you have that, you're pretty much doing what you need to do to meet up to Colorado and start to kind of sell bread.
You know what I didn't tell you, Brent, is that so I've been to different farms and ranches and locations as part of Brent's Prime Food Adventures, and the people at the Lazy Acres Ranch that raise the rabbits and the chickens, the state has a rule that says that if you process less than 1,000 a year, you can sell retail. So otherwise, and they also have like Berkshire pork, which is delicious and wonderful. That gets processed at a facility that is USDA regulated. They can sell that to restaurants and markets.
Okay. Yeah.
Because there's all kinds of provisions in Colorado that are designed to allow small
stuff like that.
Yeah, small. Know your source. Small manufacturers, small bakers, small farmers, small ranchers to get this genuine, healthy product to the consumers. Okay, now we're going to just talk about knowing your sourdough bread source. Repeating this again, this is not the first time I've said this, but the commercial sourdough bread may not be slow fermented. It may not have simple ingredients. It may not use genuine whole grain, healthy, real whole grain. It may not, or it may have unhealthy oils, and it may have sugars. So I just want to say that eating sourdough bread is not necessarily the elixir that eating sourdough bread from the Sourdough Bakery is with respect to health. Tell me what you were saying about the ingredient that's in yoga mats. That was in one of the breads you ran across?
Well, so in Subway, they had it. It's called azodiocarboamide.
We are pointing fingers today.
Well, they removed it, and they should have. But until people knew and asked, what the hell is this? They didn't do a damn thing. And it used to be put into yoga mats. Now, why would you put that into bread? Well, Subway, you can ship that bread all over the U.S. and it can sit and sit and sit and still be fine when it shows up. Right? And then they'll just bake it a little or do whatever they do.
Yeah, how they always said we bake in house.
Yeah. Well, they toast it. You toast it. Toast that yoga mat. So, anyways, again, ingredients. It's just really important. And so, obviously, my ingredients are as best that I can do. All organic, not sprayed with crap, things you can't not pronounce, and only a few. If you see something that's a paragraph, you're probably doing it wrong.
And just as I said with the olive oil, as I said with the bison, as I said with the rabbits, when I talk about knowing your source, because there is healthy, genuine products out there. You're not necessarily going to find them, I'm going to say it again, in the big box store, going down one of the center aisles. because of the fact that people are now working on corporate profits, mass production.
Shelf life.
Yeah.
Shelf life is what is really, unfortunately, it's preservatives, right? Preservatives are these seed oils, and these things are not something you normally eat or you should be eating, you know? And so that's stuff that you want to try to avoid. And sourdough in general is that, as long as it's what we're talking about, like a low base ingredients, has the culture, has the sourdough starter, if you will, and is not like mass produced or have any of this, you know, preservatives and stuff in it. That stuff is just not what we want.
Do your best to make food a relationship and not a commodity. So I'm fortunate enough to be in the Boulder area for about a year, and there tends to be a healthy lifestyle. It's one of the reasons I moved to the state of Colorado, was so that I could live a healthier lifestyle. And I've learned, because I lived here in the 80s, that the nutrients, the nutrition is part of that. It's not just, you know, hiking and walking and skiing and exercising and being outdoors in the sun, but they also have done a really nice job of making nutritionally safe or even dense products available to their customers.
It is all important. And one last thing I'll say is including your water. So here's the thing about culture, right? When you're trying to ferment stuff, if you have chlorine or something called chloramine, right, which is in all of Denver water, that will not do good for your sourdough at all, period, end stop. It will kill it, okay? So chlorine is not something that helps beneficial bacteria. It will kill it. And so additives to water is not helpful. I have a reverse osmosis filter and take out everything, and then actually even remineralize the water for not taking everything out. There's things that you can put back in and it's good. Anyways, if your water is a problem, you're gonna have to have probably a distilled water or go buy water to use to start to make bread, because tap water is not good either. I'm sorry to say, it's just not good. It's not helpful for this stuff.
I know. All right.
Yes, sir.
So here's what we're gonna do when we bake bread. And this is so many steps that we're gonna show you different steps. This is not all just some recipe that we're gonna go from start to finish, because it takes longer than that to make sourdough bread. But we're gonna show you the individual stays. So we're gonna show you the individual steps. Okay, so now again, we're gonna just discuss the steps to make the sourdough bread. And we're gonna do a starter, we're gonna feed it, we're gonna mix it, and we're gonna fold it.
Then we're gonna shape it, and then we're gonna bake it.
Now, that all cannot be done in one day. So the one that we're gonna shape is currently where?
The one that we're gonna shape is already being bulk fermented on the counter and has been folded already.
Okay. And then we're also going to do, and then we're gonna bake is where?
Is in the fridge and has already done the other. It has been folded and shaped and is in a Banneton basket and been cold fermenting in the fridge for about 12 hours.
Now you showed me, Brent, you showed me a couple starters, but we're not gonna use any of those starters today. Because we're gonna make a starter.
We're taking some of the starter from that, which is starter, and then we're going to refeed that to make a new starter. Basically, that all is feeding it. It's just making a new starter in a sense.
Okay.
And that's all that is this in a new jar, a new place. You're making and adding a new starter with old starter, feeding it, and making a new one. And that's what it really is.
There's bread everywhere. Everywhere I look, there's flour, there's bread. It's everywhere.
It's hard to get away from.
Okay, let's get started. Okay, Brent, what are we doing?
All right, we are making basically what is a new starter. We're taking old starter, or that needs to be fed, and we're going to feed it. So you want a scale. Digital scale is best in grams. So we're taking old starter. Now,
what are we going to do with this starter, Brent?
We are going to add a ratio of feed to this. So first I got to get what I want in there. And so we'll start with, you know, you don't need a whole lot because you can make more starter out of it. So 32 grams is what we got.
Okay, now hold on, Brent. Before, that's not the answer I was looking for. Is this the starter that I'm taking home with me because
Yes,
I'm going to make
is.
sourdough bread?
This is.
Okay.
And so we're making that right now and we're going to feed it. So right now we got 30 grams in there. Now, there's ratios. There can be 1 to 1. There can be 4 to 1. There's a lot of different ways to do that, and it gives you more starter after you've done that. The feed that you're going to give it is the amount that you'll get from that. So it could be 5 to 1. So 5 to 1 would be 100. It'd be 150 grams. Is that right? 5 times
30.
Yeah.
Sure is.
That would be 150, 150. So 150 of water, 150 of flour. We don't need to do that much. So we'll do, let's say, 3 or 4, because you're not going to bake a whole lot, but it's still about how much you need and when you need it.
Okay.
Either way, let's go ahead and get started.
So we have 30 grams. We're going to triple it and go to 90?
Yeah, that's what we're shooting for.
Okay.
But let's say it goes to 120. So there's about 30 anyway. So this scoop is about at what one of that is. See, there's about 2. So whatever this is still, if it's 90 or close to it, or 102, good enough, right? That's 3. It's a little over 3. It's fine.
Brett, you're scooping that like we know what's in that container.
Now, this is all-purpose flour, organic. And so all-purpose is what you want to use for your starter. That's
Okay.
what you feed your starter with. Now, you can feed it other things if you want. That's up to you. That's particular. The easiest, and for me as a baker, I get all-purpose flour that's organic, and I can get it for a good deal. And that's what I use for, because I'm always feeding. And so that's, you're using, if you do 5 to 1, that's 150. Look, you see how much you can go through with this stuff real quickly.
So tell me one more time again, what was in that? It's just all-purpose organic
flour. That's
flour.
It.
Bread,
That's all it is.
wasn't it called bread flour?
This is not bread flour.
Okay.
This is the all-purpose, just organic flour.
Okay.
So bread flour we're going to get to when we mix here in a minute.
Gotcha.
And so we'll get to that. So again, now we got 102 in there. So either way, whatever you put in, whether it was 120, 90, like you said before, you got to match that. We got to match 102 as best we can. So that's what we're going to try to do right now.
So that means we're going to get to 204 approximately, 200 mil.
And so I did 104. That's close enough. Now you don't want to be like too far off either way. Now, that basically we're good on the measurements. Now,
Wait, Brett, I'm already confused. You have to slow. You have to slow down for me.
Okay.
All right. So we started with 30 grams of starter.
It was 30 grams of starter.
And we added how much of the flour?
102.
So we added 70 grams is what that means.
Well, so if it's 30 divided by 100 is what we're doing basically.
Okay.
So that's because that's what the ratio would be in a sense. And so it's like 3 to 1 plus. It's more. It's like going towards 4 to 1.
Okay.
Because 120 would be 4 to 1.
You could do any ratio. You could do any ratio you want.
Up to 5. And don't do over 5 because, if you need that much starter, you better start earlier and make starter. So because, you can do that, but like I say, that'd be 150 and 150. That's 300. Then you're going to have a whole lot of starter, and it also peaks fast. So you have to be careful of all of that.
Just starting again, we're making starter. So we have the starter, which Brett has provided.
Yes.
We've added, so we had about 30 grams of that, and then we added about
100.
We added 100, or we added to 100 because
No, we added 100 of flour, and then we're adding 102. We're trying to match that of water. That's your feed. It's just it's the 2. Where's my water?
And how much will that weigh
So
then?
this is what we're adding. This is basically your 3 things right here, right?
Yep.
Your starter, and then you're matching whatever your feed is, 1 to 1. If it was 30, 1 to 1 would be 30 and 30, right? And if it was 3 to 1, then it's 90 and 90. And so we did 100 and 100, basically, is what we're going for. And that's what we got in there. It's 104, and it was 102. We're real close. That's why you just want digital scale. Try and get honed in. And that's what it is. And then we're going to mix this. Now, that's the next step.
So what does the scale say now? That's all I want to know.
It says 104, and that's what I put in of water.
Okay.
Right? And so basically we're matched at 100 and 100. That's what we're trying to go for the feed.
I see. So the scale doesn't show the total weight.
You can, but that has nothing to do with it. It doesn't matter about the total weight. Unless you're going for a total weight of starter. Now, if you want more weight, you do 5 to 1.
Okay.
And so
okay, all right.
It's hard to. It's like I wanted to mix it and then show you that that's the end result, though.
All right.
And so that's where we're at right now. Is basically you have your 100 and 100, and the 30 grams of starter in there. And now this you can be rough with, because starter doesn't matter. We're not folding, we're not doing anything cool with it. We're just
I'm gonna
mixing.
get close on that tool.
Yep.
What is that tool called?
This is like a silicone. You can bake with it, like using it in an actual skillet, which I don't, but it's just a long one, and it helps me for mixing my starter and getting into jars. And so it's a really good tool that I like to use to get this kind of and feed my starters with, because I can use it, you see, and I can get where it's all sticky, and I can get it down the jar really easy, most of it. If you have a wood one, it doesn't work quite as good as this. And so that's why I like that. But see, really, you gotta mix it really good, because if you want this starter to not be lumpy and have it all together and mixed in there, you gotta do a pretty good job of it. And so this is what I did to this before I marked it. Now, once this won't be easy to mark, but if you were gonna do that, you would try and get this flat, which is, you know, this is a fat jar, but you would be able to put like something around it to mark, but you can generally know where that is and how much is going to rise. And that's what you're getting for with a starter and getting a new starter going. And so you would take, basically, even though this won't fit, something like this, and you would mark the bottom of that jar of what that level is.
Okay. So when I bring that home, what do you, I have a rubber band probably
Yes.
that I'll as soon as I get home, I'll put a rubber band around it.
You're right. Now, and then you're going to let it sit, because we just fed this, right? And so by doing that, it needs to sit out with air. And by air, I just do that. Something like that. And
Okay.
that's it. And so it would sit at room temp until it peaks. And so you have that rubber band or wherever that mark is. You can mark it any which way you want. Doesn't matter. And once it's peaked, meaning at least double, hopefully triple, maybe even more. There's other ways, and you can look that up to figure out how your peak is. You want at least double, if not triple. So it would be up here. See, this right here is a peak.
So this is one. What are we going to do with that one you just showed me?
We're going to bake with this next. Okay. Now that we fed this starter, this is what we're looking for, is basically like a peak. So this one was this thick in this jar, and now it's here. Now it could even come up a little bit, but we want it to be about this high to bake with, meaning to grab whatever our recipe calls for of this starter to mix in with our bread.
Now, Brent, I want to pause just for a second and give me a moment to share. Viewers,
yes.
In the description below, there is going to be links for everything you would need, even that cool little spatula. There's going to be links for if you need a scale that measures in grams. There's going to be links for the flour that Brent uses. There's going to be links for a Dutch oven if you prefer to cook in a Dutch oven that's enameled, or if you prefer to just use a cast iron bread loaf. Is that what you would call it? Bread?
Yeah, cast iron, Dutch oven.
Not a bread skillet. What would you call it, though?
We'll have links for everything, including these really what I would recommend for the best oven gloves. And there's silicone gloves, food grade. You can grab anything with them. Really awesome. You can wash them just like your hands. Really awesome.
Let's talk about what do we have here now?
This is what I call Beatrice. I actually have her named. It's the only one I name. People do name their starter, but I haven't named my starter. She is my mixer, basically KitchenAid, just mixer for all my tidbits in baking. And so that's what we will use next to do a mix. Now that our starter is fed. So this starter, though, is ready for you to take.
Okay.
And it just needs to sit, and it's ready to go, and it'll peak, and then you can either put it in the fridge and wait till later to mess with, or you mix and bake like I'm about to show you with this next one.
Okay, so now we made the starter, which I will be taking home and probably sharing with friends and family. And then we are going to take this other peak starter. Remember, we showed this earlier next to the starter we just made. That has risen approximately tripled.
Yeah.
And we are going to mix it. So we're going to use the KitchenAid mixer, and we just have water, and I'll let you do your stuff.
Yeah, so now that we have a peak, basically we're going to start to make our loaf and bring our ingredients together.
Again,
we always start with water.
This peak has When did you start to peak? How long is that taking to peak like that?
That was probably 6 p.m. last night.
Okay.
When I fed that, maybe.
Okay.
Something close to that.
Okay.
And that was a little bit too much.
So does that mean, Brett, that it was down to that rubber band at 6 o'clock last night?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where it started. And so now that it's risen, it's taken about 12 hours, give or take.
12 hours
So,
to rise
and this
like
is
that.
all dependent on your temperature of your kitchen.
Okay.
That can change things a lot. If it's a hot kitchen, it'll happen faster. If it's cold or you're in a cold area, it'll take longer to rise. And so you just got to give it time. Time is usually your friend with sourdough. So, anyways, now we got that in there. So we're zeroed out. We got our water, and this will be based off of your own recipe and how much you want to do in it. But I'll do a basic of just showing you what we're going to do in putting it all in there and mixing her up.
How much water did you add?
I did about 375.
How do you know how much water to add?
That's based on the recipe. And your hydration level is what it's called. So a high hydration will be more water than not.
I'm going to say again that in addition to the links to all the tools and ingredients, there is going to be a link to a recipe in the description below.
So now we're adding our bread flour,
Okay.
basically, or whatever flour your base is, which is your most amount that you're using.
Starter, water, flour.
And
you have you use 3 kinds of flour.
yeah, I use different types of flour to try and get a depth of flavor on my loaves.
And that's why they taste so good.
That's why I have a decent flavor, I hope.
And you were sharing with me that that you actually use the 3 kinds of flour, and part of it is barley, right?
Part of it is barley, yes. Okay, so now we have everything except salt, right? So we're all in there, and we are ready to basically go for the first mix. And so I will let that go and start for a second.
How long are we going to mix it for?
I will show you. It's about a minute right now. And then I scrape down the sides.
What Brent has shared with me is it's always 3 ingredients in every sourdough. It's the flour, it's the water, and it's salt.
Okay,
And
so about where that is, I'll start to scrape down the sides while it still will scrape easily.
we're using that tool again.
You see, and this is it. Why I like this tool is it's not only for the starter, it helps with this, your mixer, and just getting your bowl clean and getting everything kind of where you want it to. And so you got to kind of play with the dough and get it down in there a little bit. And this is just the dough. This is not, we're hydrating. It's all we're doing right now is we're trying to get this to come together and get some moisture for about 15 to 10 minutes. 10-15 minutes is all you need, and then we add the salt. I don't know where I picked this thing up, but it's a tip I would recommend doing all the time. Hydrate your dough and starter, all of your flour, and then we'll add the salt a little bit later. And so we're not doing a crazy mix, we're just getting it a little bit. All right, so that's that. Now what we're gonna do is cover that.
Again, Brett the baker has said we do not add the salt initially. He likes to when we add it in 10 or 15 minutes later.
Yeah, and so what we're gonna do now, 10 minutes is where we're gonna wait. We're gonna let that hydrate 10-15 minutes. All right, we have rested for 10 to 15 minutes is what you want without salt. Just hydrating our dough. It's one recommendation I always have of making pretty much damn near anything. And so now that we're rested, let's go back in, salt in, and turn back on. And let that get in there for a little bit, and then we're gonna let it rest again. So you gotta let the salt, and you can see as it's mixing, it starts to stick together more and more and grab stuff off the walls because the salt is now pulling all that hydration together. And so I don't know what the real trick is about hydrating it before the salt, but I've been doing it and I think it seems to help.
How long will we blend it now?
It's just kind of to get it to make sure that the salt is in there a decent amount, like a minute or something, not a whole lot. Because really we want to work this with our hands, and we're going to go right into our holding container, which is going to proof in for the next hour. So that's about enough right there.
Are we on a certain speed, medium, low,
That was the
high?
lowest there is. Yeah,
Okay.
you don't need anything crazy where it's, you know, unless you got a lot of dough or something like that, it should just be a basic spin and everything. And so this is mixed with our salt, and now we want to get it out into our container as best we can.
Brent, I don't have a kitchen-made mixer. Can I just use a hand blender?
You can do this by hand. It's just it kind of takes a lot.
Okay.
And so, you know, all original stuff was done by hand. It's just more work. And so, you know, if I was to do this all by hand, I would have to mix this just in a bowl, like with a wood spatula, and bring it together until it's rough, and then keep going. If you have something like this, even better. And then, you know, eventually it'll start to look like this, a big slappy mess. And this is why making it and folding it, and you will see it starts to make a little bit of gluten. It starts to build right away, and it's not looking, and look, it has a little smoothness just by doing a little bit of folding, you see? And I'm using not my hands right now because otherwise I'd have to wet that. But you see how it's coming together a little bit, and we're acting like we're folding it already before we're really folding? This is how you're gonna start to build gluten. But this is what this is going to do. So now we're resting for up to an hour or a half hour, and you can start folding. That's the next step.
Okay. So we've made our starter and we've mixed, and then in a half an hour to an hour, we're going to fold, correct?
Yep.
I got
First
it right?
folds. Yep.
Good. Okay. So we are going to fold now. And what you may remember, we made a starter that's totally separate. We had another starter that had peaked, and then we had mixed it, and now we're going to fold it. Did I get that right?
I think for the most part, yeah.
I'll go for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, so basically we took the peak starter, and then now we mix that to make, this is for our loaf. And so this is the whole mix that we're doing for this loaf. And this has been sitting for an hour and covered. Now that it's been sitting for an hour, now you want wet hands. And so I normally have something like this to do and make sure that my hands are wet, because this first time that you're grabbing this is very gooey.
It's a water
It wants
bottle.
to stick, you see, and trying to get it, I do kind of what's called a coil fold, and fold it on itself. And fold it on itself. And once I can start working with it, I bring it up. And you can see it starts to smooth out. Right? We're building gluten by just doing this and letting it droop and fold. Right? Now, what we're going to end up with is a ball. I'm trying to make a ball, but this is sticky. You see, the first part and the first time you touch it, the sooner you do it under an hour, the stickier it is, harder it is to deal with it. The longer you let it wait for an hour, the better. This is right at an hour or so, but you can see it's still sticky. If my hands weren't wet, it would be all over, and you're just not going to have fun. Trust me, I learned the hard way. So now we're waiting half hour. So back on top. Half hour, we're doing the same thing again. We're gonna fold again, and as we do that, each time it's gonna get stronger and stronger, and that ball will get tighter and smoother
So
each time.
what you explained to me is that after we mixed, we let it rest for an hour.
Yep.
Is resting the right word?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, rest
And then-
covered for an hour.
Yeah,
Yes.
rest covered for an hour. And now we're going to fold it in half-hour increments.
Yep.
So
that was the first one.
Yep.
And that was after an hour, first fold, and now we're waiting a half hour, and we'll be right back to it and do the same thing.
And I think
Another
what
fold.
we're going to do together, Brett, is we're not going to show every fold,
Right.
but understand that we have a fold at the 1 hour mark, hour and a half, 2 hour mark, 2.5 hour
Yeah,
mark.
you get 4 folds basically after the mix, and you wait up that first hour. You're going to do about 4 folds to get that gluten strong and make it to where it's a tight ball. And then you're going to have it sit in this same kind of canister once you've done that final fold, and it's going to sit and ferment for your bulk ferment, which is tricky dependent on time and temperature and everything else, but about 3 hours to 6 hours, somewhere in there. And then that's where we come to here. That's what this is, and we will show you, this is coming up to that mark. We're not quite there yet, but you can see this still would have had to been folded more. This has been folded 4 times and is sat, and it's almost filled up the bottom. Then we're going to do something called shaping. We're going to shape it and put it into a banneton basket for the cold fermentation. And that's one of the final steps.
Sounds great.
All right, shaping.
Shaping.
Shaping is when we have been bulk fermenting. We have folded our 4 times, and then now we have let it rest in a covered container, at room temp for 4-6 hours, depending on what your temp is, and to get it to at least double, triple in size. And that's where we're about at right now. And so that is when we come to shape and then put into our basket. So before we do that, we're going to dust. So you want to dust your banneton basket, and this is to help it so it doesn't stick once you have shaped it, and then you're trying to get it out of that. All right, so now I've dusted that. Now we dust our flat area that I've already cleaned off, and we're gonna dump out our dough onto that, and then we are going to shape. So it should come out all in one bit if you have folded correctly. And of course you have to take it, you let it do it at its own pace and time. But you can see it's coming down kind of on its own, right? And I'm not doing anything. I'm not forcing it. I'm letting it do it on its own. You see the stick, I don't want to fool with it and do anything. I'm just letting it do it on its own.
That was so cool.
And see now how that came out, and it has this air in there. Now, this is where you want to, you don't want to be slapping and folding with pizza dough and stuff like that. It's a little more gentle, being delicate. You're spreading it out a little bit, and it doesn't have to be a lot, but you're trying to get to a semi-rectangle or a square, let's say, right? And then what I'm doing is a small little fold at the bottom, right? And we're doing a fold, and we're going to come back over again, right? Now we have this. This is after those first folds. This is where it gets fun. All right, now we're coming back in.
Did your hands need to be wet for this one?
Nope, this is not really wet. This is because this is not sticky as before. It is here, so it's a little more floury, if you will. But so we're folding back in on. We already did a fold, and then now we're taking this corner, coming back, and then this corner and coming back. Then the center, right? Now, this same thing with this. We're going center. Our corner to center, and then the center there, and then we're doing a burrito, basically also with a little fold in there. So everyone has their own little technique. Now, I'm just being gentle as I tuck back, as you can see, just a little bit of my hands to bring it back into a burrito form. You can see it blowing bubbles as I'm doing all this. The ends are not right, so what we want to do is just kind of pinch them up and tuck it in a little bit. And we're just kind of being gentle with it. And see all this flour, and when it's sticky, you're using that to kind of just, so it doesn't stick to you, and just tighten this up into like the shape that you're trying to get. Now, if it was a ball, or we're doing just a round one, we'd be coming into this so it's not elongated. But since our basket is elongated, we're kind of going for that shape. Now, you can see the ends are not too bad, so now that's the bottom. Right? And so this is not looking so bad where you need to pinch or anything like this, because this is going to be your bottom of your loaf. When you flip this back over, that's what we did before when we flipped out and then did onto the what is like a parchment paper, and then we went over and then we sliced right away. And so that was after we flipped. This is ready for that. So now we're going ready for the fridge. Basically, you need this cap. And it's going to go for its night time, which is into the fridge after this.
Brett, once again, a basket like this is something that I'll have a description for.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different versions. You can use things too around the house for this, but it really, and this is of course a pain in the ass sometimes to get on, as you can see. You have to stretch it right, but once you get it on there, it will have a little space for it to rise too. So this thing sometimes will be peeking up and a little bulgy when it comes in the fridge. So it does a cold fermentation now. And so this is ready for the fridge.
Before you do that, here, set that down. I got a couple questions for you. If you didn't have a little cap like that, what would you use?
Any terry towel. This right here. I could, instead of just putting this, I can fold that back over. It's ready to go in.
Could that be a cloth napkin if
Yep,
it's the
a
proper
terry towel.
Yeah.
Terry towel, anything like that. That just as long as it's clean and can deal with being touched, at least to food, you're good to go. And so that's what this is. I use that as the bottom. You can use it as a top too. I just have this cute thing that fits and works.
Tell me one more time. What was the process called that we just did?
That was shaping. And so we just shaped the dough right before the final ferment, which is a cold ferment, going into a basket, into the fridge, and then that's ready to come out and bake.
You'll bake that tomorrow?
This will be ready to be yanked and baked anytime tomorrow.
Okay.
Yep. Sourdough is a journey.
Those containers even, are they all purpose or are those have specifically a bread purpose?
This is just a food grade container that just works with the shape that I want. Since it's flat, it can go out and easily come out. Because I've had things that it depends on what you're fermenting on it, but you saw how it came out easily and the way it spread out. And so once you make your dough ball, whatever it's in, it needs to be able to come out easily enough. And that's what and so I just like these because it's easy to work with and I can stack with them as a
and they have lids, right? They have lids?
They all have lids, and so it does work rather well and makes it easy. And you can stack a couple of these and then have them timed, and it helps. It's easier for me as a baker to use these.
One more time, all those items will be in the description below. There's a whole bunch of stuff that if you're going to be making sourdough bread to make your life easier, because there are things you can substitute.
All right, so we are pulling out of the fridge now, which means we have shaped already, and this is 12 hours in. 12 hours, no more really than 24 is what I recommend.
This is the last step. We're at the baking step.
Baking step.
It's already been shaped.
So this has already been in there for a little while, and so now we are going to get ready to put it in the oven. So this is silicone mat that acts like parchment paper. Right.
Another item that's in the description below.
All right.
I got that specifically.
So what I do is I pull out of the oven first and get this thing ready because it's hot.
Okay, what is the oven temperature set at right now?
475.
Because
so it's pretty hot because the actual temp is about 450. So now here, look, I just flipped this, and that came out of the Banneton basket, right? And then what I do is I go ahead and move it over quick to this, right? And then we're scoring. So to score, you want a 45-degree angle using, and you want to be quick about it, right?
Why do you score?
You score because the bread is going to rise, and otherwise it would bust its seams as long as you did it right. Now, before I just put it on the top, I also add a little bit of water for steam. This is important. People do ice cubes. I just use a little bit of water, filtered water. Get that steam in there. This is going to steam is what makes this thing rise and helps it rise, especially in Dutch ovens. All right, back into the oven.
Even if I cook in my enamel-lined Dutch oven, we're going to add a little water?
Yep, a little bit would always help. 20 minutes, right? At 475, 450 is what my actual temp is for my oven. Now, I have a thermometer in there that checks that. 475, I know that. It thinks it's 450. Or it actually is 450. It thinks it's 475. That's what I'm baking.
That's what's important. Brett has explained that his oven is off, so he runs it at 475 to get a temperature of 450.
Yep. So that's what I'm baking at is actual 450.
So these
20 minutes with the top on, your Dutch oven top on, with a little bit of steam or like one ice cube. Not too much because it'll swamp the dough, but you need some steam in there. You need a little bit of water. And that's the first part of the bake. And then we'll be back in 20 minutes and take the lid off and see what we got. That's when you get to see what you've done, whether you've done well or not. If it rises, if it does something, shows you, or if it's a frisbee. We will see.
Brett, tell me about the two kinds of containers. We talked about one that is cast iron only, and one is that it is cast iron and then enameled.
Right, and so that one here is the difference, right here. These two are the difference. This is an enameled cast iron. This is cast iron that just isn't enameled. Both are great for baking, and both will hold steam, and you just got to add a little bit to it. This one holds steam a little better because if it's enameled. It just does a little bit better. So if you have this, it works great. It just doesn't like the high temperatures as much, and then you might have to clean it with like Barkeeper's Friend.
Because I have a Dutch oven that's enameled, when I make my sourdough bread, I am not going to go ahead and buy one of these cast iron ones. But if you would like to, I'll say it one more time.
Yeah.
Description below. That information will be there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, our timer just went off at 475. We're going down to 425. It's been 20 minutes.
Now I want to say that Brett's oven 425 is really 400. He feels.
Yep.
So we
It's like-
started at 450 with the lid on,
Yep.
and now we are going to go to 400, and we're taking our lid off.
So there is our bread. And
this bread is we're going to have some. We're going to try some, and
not
then
quite yet. But
no,
right,
of course
so
not yet.
we are going to get this and transfer it over because I like to get it on something where I can now steam it. So here, we're back in the oven now at 425.
Here's, let me get a close look at that because that went so fast.
That was 425 now, so we lowered the oven temperature, and now we are just basically steaming or mimicking steam. That's what you really want when you're baking, especially in the first part. And now this is going to make it crust up. So I just sprayed it, and then now a little extra to get steam in the oven, which I have hot plates and cast iron underneath there to keep that steam in there. So another 20 minutes now with the lid off. And
he did squirt that water right in the oven. He did, but that's look at there's a pan in the bottom there that it ended up. Okay.
Yeah, there's cast iron in a pan down there, and so yeah, to make that work, you want to get as much steam as you can and keep the steam in there, and then that crusts up the bread. So this is what we're doing. Now we've gotten our rise. Now that it's risen, we're trying to make a nice crust, and that's what, you know, in most bread, that's what you want. And so that's where we're adding the spray and then now steaming.
Okay, so
20 minutes at 425.
Was it? It was 20 minutes at you say 425. I'm going to go back to 400. And you say 475. So it's 20 minutes at 450 covered.
Yeah.
20 minutes at 400 uncovered.
Yep.
And with all that steaming process that's in there.
Yep.
Sounds
And
great.
then now we'll see you in 20 minutes.
Okay.
All right, we're at the second part of the bake. The lid is off. It's been about 10 minutes. It's actually been 13. We want it to be spread out of the crust. My oven can have a hot spot. So I spin it, and so the front is now in the back, and I'm trying to just even it out so it's not all brown in one area. And then I just steam again. Same thing, going into a hot pan that's down there, catching that, and then just steam in the oven. Now we're finishing out. 6 minutes, 7 minutes left. And
Okay.
we're good to go.
Can explain where we had that in for 20 minutes at 400.
Yep.
We sprayed the bread. We put more steam in, and we turned it because there's hot spots in the oven. The spin.
Yep. Yep. Just give it a half turn, basically.
Sounds
Yep.
great.
All right. Well, that was the final ding ding, as you can hear. And
40 minutes are up.
we're out, and we'll turn the oven off.
Let's see how our loaf, I'm using quotes, our loaf. This isn't
how we
Brett's
did.
loaf. This is our loaf.
This is how we did. Right here. And looking pretty good. Looks like it did a pretty good rise. You know, we measure like most men. Yeah, we did pretty good. 4.5, almost 5 inches up. Pretty good.
So
And so you can see the rise. It also had an ear. That's based on the cut and your angle. And watch it, that's hot.
Yeah, that
Yes,
was
go, you gotta watch
uh-huh.
it. This is hot. Everything coming out of the oven hot. And so, yeah. So this is, you can tell, if I didn't make the cut, it would have a spot or burst out. And it still does that, even when I make the cut. You can see there's little cuts that it will make on its own that has nothing to do with what I did. This just helps it have a shape or like a baker's signature.
And we're supposed to let the bread rest an hour, but we're not going to. This is going to be my lunch, a big slice of bread. I have to see how Brett's bread had turned out.
So we will cut that. Let's give it at least a minute.
Sure, let's give it at least a minute. And this is just called a bread rack. I'm not a baker. This little, and again, I'm going to say over and over and if you do not have these items, you go to my description. I'm going to have links to how to acquire them.
Yeah.
I'm going to need all these items because I'm not a baker for when I make my bread.
This thing's hot to go and ready to go. So
Hot to go. Okay, I'm going to have
right.
my piece of hot bread. We
have our Japanese steel. We are ready to cut our sour. And
serrated edge knife there.
for all of those influencers, you want to hear, you can hear it. It's got the crust.
And we let it rest 5 minutes. We're really supposed to let it rest an hour.
Let it rest 5 minutes, but it looks like it has a little bit of a hole. The crumb structure's not too bad. Let's try one. slice. One slice with one hole in it in the middle. For my man Brent here. Let's get you all set up here. Hold on.
All right.
All right, let's see how the bread turned out.
Let's see how we did.
God, that looks so good.
Well, it's still crunchy at least. Well, how'd the dog do? Does it have a bark? Or a bite?
Fantastic. Fantastic, everybody. It's delicious, everybody. Cheers.
Ah, thank you.
Okay, what Brent was explaining to me is that this is the starter.
So this is what we just used. This was the peak. You can see the line still there. And it is not all gone. Now you never want to use all of it because you have to use this to make and feed a new starter in a new jar.
There you go.
And so what we did with that other jar, the same thing right now. You take some of this, start at 30, 50 grams, whatever it is that you have in there, and you do your feed. Your 1-to-1, your 3-to-1, or whatever you want in a new jar. And then that's how you continually have new starter. And whether you use that or let it peak and put it in the fridge, up to you. But that's what I would recommend. Is you feed this, have it in a new jar, and then it peaks again at room temp. Either you use it for another bake or stick it in the fridge with the top one and you're good to go.
Okay.